Yeah, sorry about that.
We are now recording the meeting. Next slide. So just to reestablish our mission and vision, the mission of the BAC is to advise and make recommendations to the commission and the director on issues related to bicycling in the city, including but not limited to amendments to the bike plan, bicycle safety and education, implementation of the bike plan, development of strategies for funding projects related to bicycling, and promoting public participation in bicycling, with the vision that by 2027, the city of Houston will be a safer, more accessible, gold-level bike-friendly city. Next slide. So if you've noticed, the roll call has not changed once again. We are still waiting for confirmation from the mayor's office to get our recent appointments to the BAC confirmed. So as I did during the January meeting, I will read the attendance as it is stated, and then following, I will acknowledge both Leah and Joe, who we have on our appointee recommendation list. Please audibly announce yourself here when I call your name. Chair Tom Thompson.
Present.
Vice Chair Alejandro Perez.
Here it is.
Tracy Alexander. Zion Escobar. Adam J. Williams. Sandra Rodriguez. Commander Christine Anthony Miller. Beth Martin. Lisa Griff. Trevor Reichman.
I'm present.
Jessica Wiggins.
Here.
Yahaina Mahmood. Nick Hellier. Judith Villarreal. Amar Mohite. Mike Van Dusen. Ana Ramirez Huerta. Nikki Knight. Robin Holzer. Dion McReynolds. And our ex officio members, David Fields.
Hey, everybody.
Ian Lavacek. Juvenal Robles. Do we have any additional city staff or other agencies that would like to be acknowledged for the roll call? All right. And one more go around. Were there any BAC members who came to the meeting and joined while I was giving attendance? All right, Leah Chambers.
Here.
And Joe Catrupo.
Present.
Right. Next slide. So, as always, our agenda and the slides for today's meeting are posted on our website. If you ever get disconnected and would like to rejoin by phone, please call 936-755-1521 with the ID number of 387-102-013#. Next slide. And as always, remember to stay on mute unless identified by the chair to speak. You can raise your hand using the Microsoft Teams function to be acknowledged, or also enter into the chat box that you would like to speak to get identified by Chair Thompson. Additionally, if you are calling and connecting through the phone, you can press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. Next slide. So today we're going to have a short but robust agenda. A lot of it is going to be, some updates from, what we've learned from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So we'll have a presentation from HGAC staff. And then I myself, since I'm on the vice chair, I'm the vice chair of the HGAC's Pet Bike Subcommittee. I'm going to give an update from the subcommittee just to keep the BAC abreast of things that have been going on within the subcommittee. We'll have open forum, and we'll have plenty of time for BAC members to bring up any other issues during the open forum. As this meeting, like I said, is going to be short agenda but very robust. And as always, the public will be invited to speak for up to 2 minutes each at the beginning of the meeting. Next slide. Of course, in lieu of waiting on the appointments, we'll still have Chair Thompson chair this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I've been looking forward to this meeting to kind of get things kicked in gear as far as learning the process for getting funding for projects. Not only do we have, of course, the Infrastructure and Jobs Act that we're going to hear more about, but we also have existing funding programs, which frankly to me have always been confusing. So I'm also looking forward to Brian's report, which will hopefully give us a peek behind the very opaque curtain, at least opaque to me, at HGAC, how projects get funded. So looking forward to that discussion today. I did want to mention 3 pieces of infrastructure that we're getting progress on, which is very gratifying to me. One, of course, is the Mkt Bridge that's been out for over 500 days now, whatever, 500 and counting. But the good news is they did get all their permits. They've ordered the materials, this being a parks board in the city, and work should be beginning on that in March. So really look forward to getting that bridge restored. And right next to the bridge, the long awaited Mkt Spur. I've been by there a couple times in the last couple of weeks, and there's actually dirt flying out there, which is really good to see. So those are 2 significant gaps in the Bikeway program that are getting filled. And those are short gaps. There's a long gap that I also learned last week in the Bio Greenways program, the Braze Bio Trail between essentially Gessner, or just west of Gessner, and all the way out to Eldridge. Work has begun on that also, and that's like a 7.5 mile piece of trail that once that's completed, you'll be able to ride practically from Highway 6. It doesn't go all that way, but it gets close all the way to the ship channel. So some pretty exciting. Those are just examples that I'm familiar with, and there are plenty more of some really exciting stuff happening around the city. And looking forward to hearing from Susan and from Brian today on how we can get some more projects in the pipeline to really complete the network. So with that, Brian, why don't we go on to public comment?
So as always, for public comment, please send written comments to bac@houstontx.gov. As long as we get them by 2 p.m. the day of the BAC meeting, comments can be read aloud by staff. Once again, if you would like to comment by phone, you can press *6 to unmute when you're called upon by the chair. And if you are joining via Microsoft Teams and would like to comment, please put your name in the chat. Real quick, before I get started, I see that Alejandro's got his hand up. Vice Chair Perez.
Yeah, just a comment. I want to shout out to the Parks Board, Trent, in charge of maintenance and stuff. We were finally able to get the bicycle repair station repaired right there by UHD. The UHD Bike Club is one of the kind of the connects between the university and Houston Parks Board to get the repair station there in the first place. And we were even able to get it like in our university color, which is different from all the other repair stations. So it's finally finished. They repaired it. It was like the pump was like torn apart. Some tools were missing. the turnaround was really great. I mean, I think it was like a month that they took the pump away and they brought it back recoated and with new tools. So I want to give appreciation and thank you to the Houston Parks Board for, being diligent on that.
Awesome.
Ryan, we have a couple of comments in the chat. Do you want me just to speak up at the end of each person's comments to when there's something?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so Christina says, hi, if Susan isn't going to speak to the raise grant opportunity, I'd like to share a little bit of information. And Jessica Wiggins comments, I think, on the previous speaker. Awesome persistence, Alejandro.
Thank you.
So we did not ask Susan to include the raise grant in her presentation. So Chair Thompson, if it's okay with you, I recommend that Christina share information in between Susan's presentation and mine.
That sounds great. Thanks.
Awesome. So for public comment, so we did receive one email from Jonathan Bush. He's also here joining the meeting today virtually. So I'm going to read his email into the record, talk a little bit about the response that I gave him. And then, I'd like to allow him, if he wanted to add anything else, to speak to the BAC directly during the public comment. So here's his email. Houston Bicycle Advisory Committee. I reside in the Ridgewood neighborhood of Greater Heights and use the city's cycling and trail infrastructure. I reviewed the recent BAC meeting slides from January 26th. The section on Bikeway project updates was very informative. From reviewing the list of projects, I want to highlight a gap I hope the BAC can prioritize. There is currently no safe pedestrian and cycling connection between the Sunset Heights and Independence Heights neighborhoods. These neighborhoods are only connected by vehicular thoroughfares of Yale, North Main Street and Airline across Highway 610. Each connection requires a cyclist to join with automotive traffic in order to cross 6 highway feeder lanes and under the 610 highway. This design is unsafe and unpleasant and does not serve as a connection for cyclists or pedestrians between these neighborhoods. Sunset Heights and Independence Heights were once adjacent neighborhoods with several neighborhood streets linking them. For example, in the circa 1952 aerial view, he attached a picture from Google Earth. The boundaries of these neighborhoods are not distinguishable. Highway 610 cut through these neighborhoods when it was built, dividing them physically. The highways further divided these neighborhoods socially and economically. The Houston Bike Plan shows eventual dedicated on-street connections for Yale and North Main and an off-street connection along Little White Oak Bayou, none of which have entered the design phase as far as I know. I'm requesting that the BAC make these neighborhood connections a higher priority. I'm also requesting BAC consider new connections that do not run along busy thoroughfares under the highway and that reestablish historically lost connections. A pedestrian bridge over the 610 highway and feeders at Arlington would be a valuable reconnection. Arlington is one of the only streets that runs in uninterrupted north and south through the heights from Independence Heights. It can serve as a safe connection to the Mkt Trail to the White Oak Bayou Trail. Similarly, a pedestrian bridge that can relink roads across Link Road across 610 will give a safe connection to new developments along Airline Road and serve as part of a connection to the improved and expanded Cavalcade Bikeway. And any thanks us. So what I informed John, we had recently finished our prioritization in the middle of last year. So I offered to save his email and his comments to make sure that the BAC remembers them when we start our next prioritization iteration. I've been talking to the chair for a little bit about when we might run the next iteration, and we're gonna try to invite the BAC to adjust the prioritization methodology again, probably at the beginning of next year, and do a similar cycle as we did last year. So I will keep his comments tabled to make sure that we bring them again to the BAC when we're asking for feedback and community input from the connections and the priority corridors that don't or may not fall as high priority by data alone, because it's definitely more than a numbers game. So, Mr. Bush, would you like to add any additional comments?
Hello. Yeah, I did prepare a statement. It's in the same line. Would it be okay to read it, or it's about 2 minutes long.
Sure.
So hi, Bike Advisory Committee. My name is Jonathan Bush. I moved to Houston 14 years ago. In that time, I've lived in Midtown, Willow Bend, and now the Heights neighborhoods. When my wife and I moved to the Heights, the access to the trails was transformational in our lives. I began running a lot. I ran my first marathon in 2019, and an extended recovery period from that led to buying a bike and biking a lot. Before moving to the Heights, I had not fully appreciated how much nearby infrastructure can have a profound impact on physical activity, connection to community, on how you experience the city, on mental health and quality of life. My perspective on Houston completely changed. I went from looking for ways to move to a different city to becoming a homeowner. Access to safe biking and pedestrian infrastructure was a key reason that we chose to live here. Just as I experienced personally, studies have shown that access to trails and green space improves physical and mental health and quality of life for residents. However, safe infrastructure is not equitably accessible in this city. So like I mentioned, decades ago, the adjacent neighborhoods of Independence Heights and Sunset Heights were divided by a man-made barrier, the North Loop 610, and most neighborhood streets were cut off. Instead of having opportunities for neighbors of different racial and economic backgrounds to interact, they were segregated. I regret the equality that was lost by building this massive wall. Still today, there are only a few places to cross between neighborhoods, all of them busy thoroughfares that were mentioned and that require crossing multi-lane high-speed feeders and under the highway. There are other areas in the city where neighborhoods were not so isolated from each other by a highway. For example, every neighborhood street across Southwest Freeway from Hazard to Montrose is connected by bridges that allow pedestrians to safely cross the highway without interacting with high-speed feeders. I do realize the Bike Advisory Committee cannot go back in time and prevent this wall from being built or build half a dozen bridges. What I am asking for is the BAC to make the connections identified in the bike plan between these neighborhoods a priority, and to consider ways more safe connections between the neighborhoods can be reestablished. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Chair Thompson?
Alejandro, did you have a comment?
Me? Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with this. Jonathan, thank you for bringing this up. Yes, having seen how other neighborhoods are connected, it's obvious when you're riding your bike around town a lot. You notice this. I've noticed this a while. I mean, I live in a Northline neighborhood, and I'm able to connect to Link Road. That's the only way that goes across 45. But yeah, going from Independence Heights to Heights, that's you're running through, like you mentioned, North Main, Yale, and North Main and Yale, which I mean have been repaved. They're nice roads, but I mean for high comfort infrastructure, there's nothing like a neighborhood street to like avoid all of those 3-4 lane roads, So this is a excellent point you brought up, and if TxDOT wants to like start being about community, this is something that really need to look into when if the approval does go along for expanding 45.
And then there are a few comments in the chat. You want me to chime them in?
Yes, please.
One, sort of strange to have public comments at beginning. There is a lot of echoing, perhaps too many people unmuted. And is there a current prioritization list for this year available? And I think you responded to that one already, Brian.
Yes, and we'll do better. Like we've presented the prioritization list a few times, but we'll do better at broadcasting them. So You know, we are a very small but mighty team here. We'll probably start posting, you know, at least think about posting the high priority list on our website so they know which corridors came out of the prioritization. And those corridors were looking at the Gulfton area. So, you know, looking at Hillcroft, I think Bel Air, that was listed as high priority. The Washington Center corridor was listed as high priority, as well as Irvington past Northside. Those were the high priority corridors that we identified both with the metrics and the data, as well as feedback from the BAC. Were there any other things in the chat, David?
Sorry, nope. Although I do see Jessica Wiggins' hand up.
Yes.
Hey, yeah, Jonathan, I am really impressed by how you explain the connection between transportation, health, and bringing communities together. I'm wondering what you do for a living, because it sounds like you've really done your research there. My suggestion, if you haven't already, is that because you seem so passionate and really capable of doing the research that needs to be done, if you haven't already become involved in your local civic club or your super neighborhood, I would suggest doing that and sharing your knowledge with the people around you, and perhaps kind of, you know, brewing up a solution for how to raise this issue from not just you, but to a larger audience, because numbers are power, you know, and if you can convey what you've learned to others, you're much more likely to get what you want.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a chemical engineer, and I've started to get more involved with just in attending those things. So I do love to you know, learn more about you know, transportation and how people, you know, move about the city. So and the projects going on. So it's been very informative.
So if there are no more public comments, Chair Thompson, we can hand it off to Susan, and I apologize for misspelling your name in the title slide.
That's perfectly all right.
Would you like to share your slides from your machine?
Yes. Can you see my presentation?
Yep.
Let's go.
Great. Thank you for having me here today to present on the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. I'm Susan Jaworski, the lead PED bike planner at HJAC. The act was signed into law on November 15th and includes a total of $1.2 trillion. Approximately $550 billion of this is new spending and encompasses a wider range of infrastructure than what we historically consider transportation. The act includes a myriad of new programs, policies, and requirements. There are generally three types of funding in the act: the Highway Trust Fund, Guaranteed Appropriations, and the General Fund. Specific to MPOs, there are 42 new sections of this act that will impact what we do at HJAC and what we are required to do, including new opportunities, new programs, suballocated funding, and several new grant programs and pilot programs. The Highway Safety Improvement Program shown here, there is a typo. It's a 34% increase, and it's not actually new. But the rest of the summary table, this was developed by HAC to predict funding impact. The columns on the right show if HAC will be involved and what the funding may look like. Please understand there is not an official suballocation table yet. These are just our estimates. TASA set aside will increase by approximately 71% for our region in the amount of about $5 million. It may expand project eligibility and eligible applicants, such as MPOs representing areas less than 200,000. Some of the new programs applicable to active transportation, such as Healthy Streets Program and Reconnecting Communities Pilot Program, include many funding types, but MPOs in the Houston region will be involved in the programming of those funds. The Carbon Reduction Program, which is to reduce transportation emissions, is similar to what we have known as the CMAQ program, will be suballocated to the region. Some notable changes exist, but it's very, very similar to CMAQ. The PROTECT program is the Promoting Resilient Operations for Transformative, Efficient, and Cost-Saving Transportation and Resiliency programs. So we will be getting about 13 million more for those types of projects. The Rural Surface Transportation Grant Program is new and applies to areas outside of the urbanized area that are larger than 200,000. This has potential significant opportunities everywhere, even within our planning area that is outside of the UZA could be eligible. The Railroad Crossing and Elimination Program is a dedicated grant program to alleviate grade crossing challenges. So there will be about $600 million per year dedicated to eliminated or separating these areas where motorists and railroads interact, which could usually improve rail safety. Another program that was established by the 2017 FAST Act is known as CRISI, which is the Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvement Grants Program. That's for projects that improve safety, efficient, and reliability of freight, and is the only federal funds that short-line railroads are eligible to apply for. The INFRA program will receive over $1.5 billion and will include a new evaluation criteria such as climate change, environmental justice, and racial equity. The RAISE program, formerly Build or Tiger, is another that active transportation projects may be eligible for, and that program is anticipated to receive $1.5 billion. The new Safe Streets and Roads for All program is essentially a complete streets program. HGAC will be required to produce complete street standards for the region as part of the new law. Once those are established, we'll qualify for additional funds to implement those standards. Some other additional active transportation related programs mentioned are the Healthy Streets program, which more or less is to mitigate urban heat islands and improve air quality. And it includes areas that are focused on pedestrian only or low volume, low speed areas. Stopping Threats on Pedestrians program, which prevents pedestrian injuries in high pedestrian areas. The Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Program, which is to enhance safe and connected active transportation facilities. There's also the SMART grant program, which are for demonstration projects focused on advancing smart city or community technologies. Some of the new competitive programs, charging and fuel, hydrogen fuel infrastructure, are examples. Congestion relief program is something we're probably interested in as a region. Our MPO director has already indicated that we will be submitting for the prioritization process pilot program. It's very important to us as one of the largest MPOs in the country, so we can be the model to follow for development of project prioritization and programming. There's also, for example, truck emission reductions at port facilities. The Reconnecting Communities program, it mitigates impacts of communities that have been divided by highways over the years. So it can include the removal, retrofit, or mitigation of transportation facilities to enhance community mobility and alleviate some of the barriers. The Safe Streets program, that's essentially, that's a Vision Zero program, enhancing the safety of pedestrians. The amount of funding from grants and discretionary programs is approximately 100 billion. We are preparing for regional coordination for successful as region as these in order to be we are preparing for regional coordination in order to be as successful as possible as a region to obtain these grants. We're anticipating that Federal Highway will develop a grant application system where project concepts are submitted once, then eligible funding for the project will be identified, instead of one project being submitted for multiple funding opportunities. All of these increase in funding indicates that workload on MPOs will increase by approximately 32% to match the funding. We are not, since these are not official and we're still using estimates since the official numbers have not been released yet, where we are not officially allowed to use, we're having to add housing components to our regional transportation plan as a result of some of the changes to the Infrastructure Act. Also, we've recently have learned that we are no longer allowed to use social media or virtual public engagement and strictly. So that's something that is being discussed to see how that's going to roll out, or if we're able to use we're waiting for the official word for that. And like I mentioned earlier, we will be developing complete street standards and will then be eligible for funding to implement those projects.
May I ask a quick clarification question?
Sure.
If you go back, I got a little confused on the digital public engagement. It explicitly allows or explicitly doesn't allow?
Sorry, I apologize. I had misspoke on that one. It does allow.
Okay, great.
It's been revised to explicitly allow social media and virtual public engagement. That was my.
That's okay. I just was like, wait, I want to check. Thank you.
And we are partnering. We're participating in the rulemaking and development program guidance. And we're giving our Unified Planning Work Program a good overview to see if there's any changes or amendments that need to be made in order to reflect the anticipated Infrastructure Act. We're in the process of discussing and defining urban versus rural areas. So the MPO is also going to be involved in those conversations with the Census Bureau. And we will be bringing this item back with the updates regularly to our HJC's Advisory Committee and Policy Council, and we'll pass along any major updates or relevant information to the BAC as well.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Susan. Do we have any questions? Anything in the chat yet?
Nothing in the chat.
I'll bring a comment or question. So recently, Bike Houston had like a must fix list that they were promoting as a crowdsourced kind of deal to kind of figure out what can be fixed in the Houston community or Houston area, right? One of my concerns was the railroad crossings. In some parts of Houston, there are parts where like there's railroad, it was railroad right away, but there's no railroad anymore. However, there was still like the crossings on the street. So I was wondering like how we would remove those. And like I saw you mentioned that there was a railroad elimination program or something like that. So would this program apply to that, or how, what's the, I guess, further details on that program?
We're definitely waiting for specific details to be released, as right now they're currently working on their notices and their guidance and interpretations of how to implement the Infrastructure Act. But based on the very preliminary information that we do have, there is going to be a designated funding for the removal of, to help with those grade separations, or to remove the railroad crossings.
Sounds like really good news. Hopefully hear, I would like to hear more updates on that when, as soon as you get them.
Absolutely.
Susan, this is Tom. When are you anticipating that we're going to get more guidance from the feds on how these new programs are going to be administered?
We keep hoping. We're very much anxiously awaiting them. Realistically, it's probably going to be another month or two before it's released.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a question in the chat from Jessica Wiggins. I think this kind of overlaps with what was just asked. Can you reiterate who can apply for these funds and if we know when they will become available?
As far as, and depending on which program is the eligibility. So historically it's municipalities, government entities, and keep in mind this could all change. We're waiting for the details. Some of the things that are unique is it's also opening it up to MPO areas of less than 200,000, so rural MPO areas. And there's also reference that for some programs that nonprofit entities may also qualify, which is relatively new. What details as far as beyond that, we just don't have that information at this time.
Hey, Susan, this is Tom again. Could you make that presentation available to the BAC?
Yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
And Susan just send it to me after the meeting, and then I will import it in the master slide deck and then resend it out to everyone in the BAC, and then update the slides on the website for the archive as well.
That will work. And we'll send it your way.
And then one more question. Are there social channels and handles to follow?
That I am not sure. I have not compiled a list. Let me get back to you on that one. So that way it'll be easier to try to keep up with some of it on your own. So I'll report back. I'll give it to Brian for inclusion in the packet.
All right, so thanks again, Susan. And now, Chair, sorry, let me continue.
Just wanted to thank Susan again for making the presentation. I really appreciate the effort, Susan.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So well, before I continue, wanted to hand it over to Christina from Bike Houston. More details on the RAISE grant.
Brian and BAC committee. So yeah, as we've heard, there's so much interest about the bipartisan infrastructure law funding sources. And while, a lot of the details are still unknown, there is the first funding source for the RAISE grants that has been announced. So the RAISE grants, it's the Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity grant. This used to be, I know Susan mentioned this briefly, it was the BUILD grant and then turned into the Tiger grant. And so it's currently in its 13th cycle. And the notice of funding opportunity is open and applications are due between now and April 14th. So importantly, they doubled the amount of funding that is available for this program because it's been so sought after in the past. And this region has been recipients in the recent years. So for instance, in 2019, Shepherd and Durham major reinvestment project was funded for $25 million. So at this point, April 14th is not far away, as we all know. There's a lot of requirements for this. There's 18 in total, which really just have to demonstrate that you meet 18 different criteria, including things like safety, environmental sustainability, quality of life. I mean, there's 18 of them. There's a lot. Multi-jurisdictional coordination is really, really important, which is why we'd want as many people, as many agencies and organizations to be in on one application at once. So I know there's a couple of us who've been thinking about this so far. So folks at Bike Houston, Link, Air Alliance, we're trying to get a good sense of what projects could be eligible and would work well for the region. And, you know, building off of what Susan said, it really is, and I've confirmed this with FHWA, with Kurt Favre, that they don't want too many applications coming from the various regions. So I will definitely drop the links for these, for the notice of funding opportunity and for the grant in the chat. And I'm really just providing information here, but Bike Houston is more than happy to play any role in helping to prepare an application, get letters of support, or whatever else we can do to help.
So Brian, there's one hand up and it's actually me. Can I add a little bit?
Yeah, please go ahead, David.
Great. So the timing for this is perfect, and thank you for the teeing up, Christina. We have been looking through all the different things, projects that we would like to do as a city that match as many of those 18 criteria that were mentioned. It is tricky stuff. It is not, it was always tricky, but each year, each time they put it out, they've kind of tailored it differently, used a little different language. We think we have a good project. One of the things they ask for is that design already be underway. Not just a project that a community would like to do, but they've already shown that it's already advanced to a certain point. So we are starting to organize a package around Telephone Road from South Lockwood all the way down to Revel at Sims Bayou. And the reason this one jumps out to us, it does several things. It's on the bike plan, and so the project would include, bike facilities. It's on the high injury network. It deals with the safety issues that the feds are looking for. What we call complete communities and equity issues, they start to call. It's something along the lines of neighborhoods of persistent poverty. I don't know if that's exactly the language. It's something very close to that. These neighborhoods meet those demographic characteristics, but kind of one of the things that we think puts this ahead of some other applications, on the north end and the south end, there are two different TERSs who are in design on projects for telephone. And with a RAISE grant, we could actually connect it, and instead of doing about half a mile on the north end, like a mile and change on the south end, we could actually do 5 miles straight through and make this a really, really great connection. I love the hands, Leah. So we think it checks a lot of boxes. There's also a very complicated, it's called a benefit cost analysis formula or a spreadsheet. So we're trying to work through that because we only want to put something forward that has a real good chance of getting it. But we hope you all support because it does match a lot of what everybody's looking for. I see it. I'm not facilitating. I can't call on people. but I do see Joe Catrufo's hand.
Yeah, Joe, please go ahead.
Hey, I guess a question for David on that. Given that telephone is median separated, we don't have too many protected bike facilities on median separated streets. I'm curious, since this is the infrastructure subcommittee and we can really nerd out on specifics, is it possible to do protected bikeways on the left side against the medians on streets like this?
So I do want to be clear, it's part of it has a median, not the whole thing.
Okay.
Right? If I remember, and I'll admit I don't know every block of it, but yeah, that's one of the things we're figuring out right now. For the parts that haven't really started design, that'll catch up to the TERSs that have started the designs on either end. What do we have to do to make that match? We are certainly open to all cross sections. We are not boxing ourselves in at this point, and I think we can stand on a recent history of being very open to new designs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Christina, for covering that and the opportunities that presents. Brian, are you ready to move forward with yours? Oh, do you have some more, Christina? Sorry.
I just wanted to follow up with David and ask, how can we help? So, I mean, given, like, how are you dividing up? I mean, these 18 criteria, they're a lot. So, yeah, I would love to know. I'm sure, everyone on this call wants to see this project happen. So how can we help?
Yeah, that is awesome. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. One of the things that we have really been doing differently over the last few years, and for anybody who kind of predates our current staff, planning and public works are doing this as a collaborative effort. This is not the planners kind of go off and say, well, we want to save the world and write something up, and then the engineers come later and be like, oh, you can't build that. What's going on here? Which other cities and other histories may have shown similar histories. We are doing this as one team effort application. Patrick Wynn, Catherine Summerlin, and Peter Eccles are our team putting together all of this material, and they're kind of conquering and dividing. What the specific asks of each of you are, I don't have yet, but I'm going to hold you to that. You're all going to be ready to help, whether with a letter or maybe calling your electeds, or if you think of somebody who's in this area that we haven't reached out to and you can connect us to them. Everything we can do to really get one united application will make this much stronger. I really do appreciate that.
Awesome. And I think that's good for all the notes and the comments. Chair Thompson, shall we continue?
Yes, please do, Brian.
So I'll go ahead and get started on my presentation. If you remember last year, we let the BAC know that there were going to be 2 members of the BAC, well, at least 1 member of the BAC and 1 staff member that is the liaison to the BAC that were going to be appointed as chair and vice chair of HGAC's Ped Bike Subcommittee. And when Anna from TxDOT, she is the chair. So when we made the announcement to the BAC, we also made the promise to make sure the BAC was abreast of the things that the HGAC Ped Bike Subcommittee was doing, so that there are ways for the BAC to also be involved and also stay notified of things. So next slide. So here is the membership for both primary and alternates for the Ped Bike Subcommittee meeting. I've highlighted all of the familiar names that you've seen from roll calls or voices from people who do a lot of speaking during these meetings. I also want to acknowledge my colleague Lauren Grove from Houston Public Works, who's also with planning, and also, provides a lot of insights and gives a lot of feedback from the public works side, the Bikeway projects to the BAC. And in my year being a part of the Ped Bike Subcommittee, it seems like it operates a lot like the BAC, but just at a regional level. So some of the things included in the purpose of the Ped Bike Subcommittee are provide guidance for development of the active transportation plan and review and approve the plan. Advise the Transportation Advisory Committee to consider ped bike travel, facility design, safety and education and transportation planning processes. Review, recommend updates to the regional pedestrian and bike plan. So a lot of the things that have been going on in the Ped Bike Subcommittee, it just reminds me a lot of the work that's done with BAC. Next slide. So to kind of talk about some of the things that we have been up to. Last year, the Ped Bike Subcommittee, number one role was providing feedback to the Transportation Blueprint Plan Subcommittee on how we're going to evaluate active transportation projects in the next tip call for projects. So some of the recommendations that we made, now mind you, these are recommendations from the Ped Bike Subcommittee, so they are not approved and codified in the tip call, but we'll see what all got passed or what got negotiated upon when the next tip call for projects comes out. But some of the things that were asked for was to split scoring for 80% for planning factors and then 20% for benefits cost analysis, because a lot of the ways that we would measure whether the merits of an active transportation project lied in the planning factors, not so much in the benefits cost, so we wanted to change that ratio. Also, CMAQ set-asides for active transportation. The CMAQ is the Congestion, Mitigation, and Air Quality Program. So if we're talking about mitigating air quality and congestion and getting people off the roads, we want them riding bikes. That's a great way to reduce emissions. So we ask for a set-aside for active transportation. And then also gave recommendations for the weighing of the planning factors that will be used to evaluate active transportation projects. So the current recommended weights were 39% for connectivity, 25% for safety, 24% for equity, 8% for barrier elimination, and 4% for innovation. I was talking to Chair Thompson over the last few weeks about these particular planning factors and how some of the data within that were going to be used for the tip call for projects could marry well with our own prioritization of our bikeways. So when the tip call for projects are approved and the weighting of both the weighting of the planning factors and the data that's going to be used to determine the planning factors are set in stone in the next tip call for projects. I've talked to the chair about it. So what we'll do is when we talk about our next iteration of prioritization next year, we'll do a side-by-side comparison, see where we match in some of those data points, see what data points are different. So, some, for example, at the regional level, they ask for, will the project, does it have local support or is it part of a local plan? We wouldn't necessarily use that in our own local prioritization because by default, everything's in pipeline. But I do want to offer that up as the BAC to do that side by side and see, as the BAC considers adopting or changing some of our own factors, we could take that into consideration. And then also, we made some recommendations to updating the benefits cost analysis to one, incorporate more up-to-date crash data and information, as well as update the emissions benefits template. Now, I'm not the most savviest at emissions benefits, and David already talked about how laborious it is for the raise grant. So we talked about making that easier for local agencies and utilize some of the tools and digital mapping that HGAC already has set in stone. Next slide. And some of the things that are going on for this year, One, the Ped Bike Subcommittee has been consolidating resources and agencies to assist the region in applying for bicycle-friendly community businesses and university status. So about a week ago, we held a special subcommittee meeting on bike-friendly businesses. Invited the bike lead to come out and talk about the application. Also had some best practices for people who have already received bike-friendly business status. Shout out to Jessica and Robin and TEI, who have been setting the standard in the area. And then in June, we're going to host a similar meeting on bike-friendly communities and universities. I've already talked in several BAC meetings before about how our own bike-friendly community application will be going up for renewal this year. So I'm going to utilize that opportunity to not only make sure that our application is as stellar and as good as possible, and I'm going to need a lot of help from you all here at the BAC, but also making sure that our process is shared with our sister cities all around the area, so that, you know, the entire Houston metro looks well. Because if we're the only bike-friendly community in the area, I mean, it's good, but it could be a whole lot cooler, if you know what I'm saying. Next slide. Also, there are 2 work groups that the Ped Bike Subcommittee is standing up for this year. The first is going to update the regional bikeway network. So making sure the GIS bike network layer is up to date with all of the different bikeway projects that are going on within the boundaries of HGAC's area, as well as adopting regional standards for categorizing bikeways. So it's easy to know, like when a high comfort facility, you know, when you're leaving the city limits in one area and going to another, you know, feel that the nomenclature is the same, so that the user, you know, doesn't have to, you know, do some kind of crazy math or figure some stuff out to know whether or not a bikeway is going to be safe beyond a boundary. We had our first meeting in January where we covered some of the people who are already building bicycle facilities in the region and are currently compiling bikeways data from everybody. So we, of course, submitted our bikeways map, and a lot of other agencies are submitting theirs, and then we're going to start looking at the data and examining, like, what are some of the like categories, what are some of the different categories, and how can we make everything make sense and talk to each other. And also we are standing up a work group on an active transportation model, and the goal is to kind of develop or enhance a tool that will perform accurate travel demand modeling for active transportation in the so, you know, a lot of the research is available for, like, transportation modeling has to deal with passenger vehicles and cars. So making sure that we have something accurate to include for active transportation that could feed into future tip call for project cycles and future funding opportunities. It'll be a while, so it won't be in this particular call for projects, but this might be something that could get implemented in the one after the cycle coming up. And we had one initial meeting in January just to introduce the subcommittee into activity-based modeling. And once again, I'm not the expert on this. So I've been reaching out around the city. We have some people in Houston Public Works that are very savvy with this. So, you know, at least from the city of Houston, like, we made sure the correct people were going to be in the room to represent the city. And also happy to, you know, share updates on a regular basis. And if anybody wants to get involved or get more details beyond BAC meeting, I'm happy to, you know, provide that as well. Look at me as a resource. If you ever want to know what's going on at these meetings, the Ped Bike Subcommittee meets quarterly at the same schedule as the BAC, so January, April, July, October, and we're happy to continue to share the information and make sure that we can bring, you know, not just city staff's feedback, perspectives to the HGAC Ped Bike Subcommittee, but we're also incorporating the Bikeways community and the BAC within the city in our conversations. And that's my presentation. Happy to take questions, comments, ask for more details.
There are a few notes in the chat. I'll catch everyone up. Christina shared those 18 criteria from RAISE. I'm not going to read all of them, but they are there for you all. Comment, I'm still working on getting UHD to apply for bike-friendly university, working with the Dean of Students and looking to meet soon. Thanks, Alejandro. And Tom saying that's great, Alejandro.
That's awesome. So, so Alejandro, we're gonna do, when we do the bike-friendly community and universities panel in June, I want to make sure that you get included in that, because I believe the deadline for bike-friendly universities coincides with the beginning of the academic year. So they would have, if they wanted to get included in this cycle, I think they would have to apply by August. I think that's their deadline. And we love, you know, for them to get information at this session, and support you in any way to get them involved.
Definitely, yeah, I do. I've been looking at the application and I saw the deadline. I had to look some of this stuff up while I was trying to email her, the Dean of Students. So yeah, she was on the out of town this week, and I'm gonna follow up this week to see if we can meet anytime next week, whatever. But yeah, because I know the deadline is coming up, I want to see if I can get a meeting with her. And knowing this information about the meeting in June, I can come up with her and ask her that there's going to be this meeting, so she can be more aware of what the application is about and how the city is trying to work with this. So yeah, please keep me in the loop.
Yeah, and if she has questions along the way, Susan has done a great job at connecting the region to the bike league. They're open for more questions. They're willing to give a lot of great information to us. So even if it's something that we can't handle here, we've got that tie, thanks to Susan, that can help her as well.
There's a question, how do we gain access to the GIS bike network layer?
Yes. So we have, for the city of Houston, if you go on the Bikeway's website, there is a tab for maps. You'll find both the updated online Bikeways map, so it pops up, and it looks similar to Google or Bing Maps, and you can see which Bikeway projects exist, which ones are programmed for design and construction, and also you can click on the entire network in the Houston Bike Plan. And then down at the bottom of the page is a direct link to the City of Houston's GIS Open Data Portal. And you can go into the Open Data Portal and download the most up-to-date shapefile that we have. Let's see. I can work on. I seen the question pop up in the chat. So during the open forum, we'll make sure to get that in the chat for you today. But also, we don't have, the reason why we don't have the shapefile on our website is because we actually have a pretty good thing going with our GIS team where it's automatically updated quarterly, so that we're not like the middle people and downloading the shapefile and then re-uploading it to our website. We just give the direct link to our to the GIS layer that gets routinely updated. And HGAC has a similar data portal, but the regional bikeways layer, if Susan is still on, she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was last updated in 2018. So it might not be the most correct or most accurate because there's a lot of work that's been going on.
Correct. It's definitely on, and I think it's maybe even older than that. It's definitely outdated, but hopefully we'll be caught up here shortly. But my browser crashed, so I will try to add a link on at least how to access the old data, just so you have it.
And Jessica Wiggins has her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Jessica.
I had a question going back to, Brian, I think your idea about kind of merging the city's prioritization criteria with HGAC's TIP criteria. Is that a accurate description of what you were proposing there?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily recommend we do a like one-to-one adoption of HGAC's criteria because a lot of their criteria is also based, you know, on some regional context. But what I do think we should do is when their criteria is officially approved by the TPC, we take a look at it and make sure, you know, some of those same data points are being prioritized in our prioritization, because then, you know, like it works two ways. So one, you know, we make sure we're reflecting like our priorities as a city and as a community, but we're also making those projects because we're also making those other projects. We think about what would be competitive, you know, to apply for this additional funding. So like our prioritization lets us know as staff where we should direct our CIP funds and where we should direct our city funds. But there are other priority one bikeways, you know, that might not get chosen because of, you know, we've only got so much money. But then that way, this other list or additional priority one bikeways that we haven't adopted for the CIP, if we're married up with HGAC's criteria, then it's more likely that those bikeways will also be seen as competitive in that state.
Yeah, I think the logic is sound. The only concern I have is that I know we've had kind of a back and forth about prioritizing projects in the past. And I don't want to be, you know, I don't want that process to be extended any longer or made more complicated. You know, I feel like there's some benefit to having a simple prioritization process that can be explained pretty easily to the public and kind of just spit out projects and roll. So I totally understand the intent here, and sure, there's pieces that we can pull in to make it, you know, more of a plug and play, but I just want to, like, I don't want to take any more time to do prioritizing projects.
Oh, absolutely. And so the next, so the prioritization cycle, one of the things that I've been working on is making sure that it's like routine. So like if we start the prioritization discussion again in early next year, that would make it a 2-year cycle. And I agree that I don't want to make it more complicated than it has to be. Because on the staff side, it's some pretty complex statistics to, you know, get with the model that we currently have. But the good thing is that, you know, at least from just the inside looking in, looking at some of the data points that were included in the HGAC's prioritization, we already use those in ours. So for some of that, it might just be a matter of changing some of the weight. Because I think incorporating a lot of new data into the model will definitely have some negative effects. And then also, HGAC has been working on a lot of great tools. So HGAC has like an activity and connectivity tool where you can highlight a corridor, and they're setting it up so where like a lot of the data points that's mentioned in their criteria are popping up. So you can, Telephone Road, for example, you can highlight the part of Telephone Road that we're working on, and we'll get a lot of the data that comes behind their metrics. So worst case scenario, if it's too complicated to use anything that they've got and add it to our prioritization, we can still take those additional high priority corridors and run it through their publicly available tool, and then use that as a comparison to see, okay, out of corridor 1, 2, 3, this one looks to be scoring the highest on the HGAC metric. So we got some wiggle room there, but that's a next year
Okay.
thing.
And just to clarify, when we go through the prioritization process, and I know we went through this and you'll have to just remind me, we go through that prioritization process to get projects that we could spend our, 1.1 million a year on. Is that correct or accurate?
Mm-hmm. I think it's up to 2. I think we got more money now.
Well, I know that it apparently was rolling over, so I'm just a little unsure about where these prioritized projects are going and how we're spending the money we're allocated.
Brian, can I offer a little context?
Yes.
Thanks. So the answer to all of it is yes, kind of. It's been $1 million a year. We did roll over money this past year. So we're working with a bigger budget this year, but we don't know if that will continue in the next CIP. But I think the more important piece is it's prioritization aimed at CIP as well as any later funds that are available that we can apply for, with the caveat that when we apply for external funds, some require a certain amount of design. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the next prioritized project if we haven't started design. If they need something we built, that's why telephone is jumping up a little, because it moves up. So it's generally, this is everything we look for when it comes available, but it then has to be appropriate to the thing we're applying for.
Gotcha.
And I guess one last thing on the prioritization. So one of the cool things that's going to happen with the next iteration of prioritization is that we're going to have a very significantly different network. So we've added close to 100 miles of bikeways to the network between January this year and January 2021. Now, some of those bikeways were bikeways that were finished last year, but a pretty significant amount of those bikeways are bikeways that we were able to account for last year because of the great work from, everybody who's been reporting up the projects to the city, so we can add those to our map, as well as, citizens and BAC members, and all of you who send me emails to say, hey, Brian, are you aware of this particular bike lane here? Like, I think this is done. So all of that has made our map better. Include everything that's going to be getting worked on this year. I think next year the high priority corridors will look a lot different. And then that also gives us the opportunity to kind of check off, some of our high priority corridors that we have as high priority now, as they get, funding or start getting design allocated towards them, we would remove them from the running so that others could get lifted up.
Just 2 quick things in the chat. From earlier, I apologize, it's taken a while to get to it. Sounds like a hackathon opportunity. I think that might have been related to the GIS layer. And then Brian did put the GIS the bike plan link, excuse me, with documents, the link in the chat.
All right. Thanks a lot. So, Chair Thompson, we still have quite a bit of time. A lot of, we have the meeting until 4:30. So I'd like to hand it to you. If you'd like to open up the open forum.
Yeah, I guess we'll just proceed again. People can raise their hands if they have anything in particular that they'd like to bring up for discussion. And just as a clarification for those who have not participated in recent meetings, the open forum is intended for members of the BAC to bring up topics for discussion. And David?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to give an update on the 11th Street project. As many of you know, we are working between 60 and 90% design. There was a smaller 40-person community meeting, self-invited last Tuesday, and then one last night at Buchanan's. While staff was not officially invited, I showed up and was asked 2 hours worth of questions about the project. I did my best to represent you. I also want to thank everybody who has an interest in this project for showing up and voicing your support. I do believe a role of this advisory committee is to show the community what you are advising us about. So I wanted to thank you all for that.
Yeah, I was about to mention that too. I heard that happen, and I was hosting a bike ride at the school, so I was like, maybe if I get a chance, but I couldn't. It was at 6 o'clock, and we started at 6. So I was like, I missed out, and I was hoping to hear updates on that. Thanks, David, for showing up and answering the questions, because part of the challenge is informing people.
Okay, I see Mike Van Dusen, you have your hand up.
Yes, I do, Tom. In a recent SN22 meeting, it was brought to my attention that there is a future project to extend Patterson Street, which is becoming a bikeway, across the bayou up into Heights. I was wondering if anybody has any information on that, because that was news to me.
Who announced that, Mike?
Sherry Wiesner was one of the Terzes.
Oh, Sherry Wiesner.
This is a very much in the future project. I don't know that it's a CIP, but it's apparently something that there's a vision there. And if that's the case, it'd be another opportunity to get across a barrier.
Does anyone on the committee or elsewhere have any information on that? Because I'd heard something along those lines too, Mike, but it had always been kind of a pie in the sky, wouldn't this be nice to have kind of thing, as opposed to something definitely in some plan.
So I'm bringing it up now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joe?
I just wanted to follow up on David's comments about 11th Street. I've received a number of emails and received a number of comments from people in social media who are, self-professed, as avid cyclists, even Bike Houston members, who have said that, they wouldn't use 11th Street because they prefer to ride on another east-west corridor. They don't think 11th Street is the right place for bike lanes and that sort of thing. We of course disagree with these people, but I just do want to point out that there are some people out there who are, purportedly like-minded, who are, against this plan for one reason or another. But I want to be sure that everyone sort of follows what I'm trying to say here and try and be clear about this. But if you are someone who rides a bike in Houston anywhere, and regardless of whether you like protected bike lanes or don't, regardless of whether you just stick to the trails or not, if this project were to be stopped, it'll be harder to get safe streets projects and protected bike lanes everywhere. Because if for some reason the naysayers on this were to prevail, which I don't think they will, thanks to your good work, David, and your team, they will be emboldened to stop safe streets projects all around the city. And the naysayers in other neighborhoods will have a playbook to try and stop other safe streets projects. So I want to be sure that we try and convince the people we know, the people that we ride with, who are maybe anti-protected bike lane or sort of lukewarm when it comes to street redesign projects, because they themselves feel comfortable taking the lane. I want everyone to try and reassure them that you might not use this lane personally, but you might care about street safety projects in other neighborhoods. So be careful. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. That's an excellent point, and there's nothing new with that kind of a conversation. I remember it being a topic of conversation at Black Houston board meetings 10 years ago. There were the confident cyclists that thought that there's no need for bike lanes, no bike paths. They feel better taking lane. Well, that may be 1% of the population. So, we need to build for the others that don't feel comfortable with that. So thank you so much for making that point. Mara, I believe you're next.
Hey, I just was going to echo what Tom you just said. That extension of across White Oak Bayou at Patterson was at one point a developer proposed extension, and it has been sort of envisioned for some time, but there has not been a financial commitment to make that connection. And I think so if it is moving forward and it improves connectivity between Heights and Washington Avenue area, the Wash Ave area, I think so it's a great thing for the overall community from a local circulation standpoint.
Okay, thank you, Amar. Judith Villarreal.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to comment on what about the 11th. Is it mostly because people are I mean, because I just wrote that bike down that street on the 14th. I took a big group, about 150. I think that most people already feel comfortable using it. I think a lot of people use that 11th Street, and if any of the reason why they don't want it to become a bike lane, because I mean, I guess I'm that 1% where I prefer a shadowed lane over a bike lane, especially because that street is full of holes and cracks, and it's almost kind of curved, so all the dirt and everything is gonna go within all those crevices. Is that like the main reason why people don't want it or against that? Because it's a pretty ugly street. I mean, is it gonna get paved, or they're just gonna slap some paint and some armadillos on it?
Joe, could you respond?
I'll try to. The point I'm trying to make is that, just because there might be a route that you already use, it shouldn't preclude the creation of a route that is safe for cyclists of all ages and abilities. So, I'm generally pretty comfortable with taking the lane on some streets, and you may be the same. And there's probably people in this room who feel the same way. If we're going to make Houston a city that's safe for, people who are just getting back on a bike for the first time in many years, people who are who mostly stick to the trails, and who are generally pretty uncomfortable on the streets, this is one way to expand their ability to get around on a bike. As I understand 11th Street, it'll have physical protection that's more robust than Armadillo's, but with concrete barriers. Someone from the city can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But you know, and a broader point to it as far as connectivity and the whole bike network goes is that this is a east-west connector between the Shepherd and Durham project, which will have raised sort of sidewalk level hike and bike trails, and Mishaw Street, which is the north-south corridor that brings you down to the White Oak Bayou. And on a broader point, this sounds a little obvious, but you know, every street in Houston has at least one car lane. Just having one or two bike lanes in a neighborhood doesn't really make a network. It's good to have redundancy, and it's good to have multiple routes. And critically, access to businesses on major streets like 11th Street. Bike lanes shouldn't just be on the secondary streets. You know, 11th provides a direct route to you know, all the destinations and businesses on that street for anyone who's you know, again, all ages and abilities.
Yeah, you know, the more recent opposition I've heard from some of my friends that are, you know, brave cyclists is that it's the maintenance issue. You know, we put the money in, we put in, you're very familiar with this. I think everyone on the committee is, but I'm just saying it again, is that we got to maintain them, you know, because having a nice protected bike lane that's full of trash and debris and potholes and stuff doesn't do anyone any good. So, and you know, we have addressed that. We're continuing to work on that. It brings to mind to me again that budget season is coming up, and that we need to be proactive about working with the city on getting dollars allocated to getting those lanes clean and keeping them that way. Alejandro, you have your hand up again.
Yeah, so yeah, I just want to amplify what Joe said and like the ages and abilities. So the reason for bike lanes, because like I mean, I'm active on social media, and when I talk about bike lanes, I get a lot of comments too about people like saying like, why do we need the bike lane? Like the road is perfectly safe. Or you know, people are comfortable with it already. But you know, leading rides at UHD, I come across a lot of students who haven't rode a bike before. And the ride that I did yesterday, basically all of them were first-time riders and that haven't been riding in a while or haven't ridden in a while. But like, you know, I took them to Discovery Green from UHD to there, and you know, I was able to mostly stay on a bike lane from that. Of course, a little, you know, I guess detours, right, because of construction and you know, the new connection of the trail that's happened by the Joe Campos Tours right there. I look forward for that to opening up. But everybody had a good time. So, and then it was their first time riding. So I'm looking forward to seeing an article from there's one of the writers was a writer for the school paper. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he writes on the article, on his article, and what he see about the experience of riding through there. And I'll be able to make sure to share that with you guys. And that's why I'm doing this kind of volunteer work, is because I want people to, like, of all levels, you know, there's the social riders, there's the distance riders, and I think we're not really looking at are the commuters as much, or those aren't the really ones engaged in social media because they want to do social rides. They're you know, they're just going about their business and finding a way to get around town. And I think those are the ones that we have to be mindful when we're doing this, and seeing how we can make it safe for them to get around town to do their errands or, you know, get to work. So that's why I do this, and I hopefully, you know, with that, you know, those commuters can see the gratification of like the city doing something for them to get around.
Thank you. And Trevor?
Hey, Tom, you mentioned earlier about the Mkt Bridge repair beginning in March, which is great and also long overdue. And I'm wondering if there's an estimated completion date for that, or if maybe I missed that.
As far as I know, it's going to take a couple months, but my memory's notoriously inaccurate. So if someone on the call has a better schedule than that, please jump in.
It's late summer.
Late summer, okay. always, I'm ever optimistic.
Great. And then also just to add to the dialogue about 11th Street, for me personally, what I'm most excited about is being able to cross it, going north on the north-south routes, for example, on Nicholson. The road diet just makes it possible to even cross that street on a bike or bike foot.
Yeah, excellent point. David, do you want to catch everyone up on the chat before we go on?
Yep, that's what. Thanks, Chair. Jessica Wiggins says, "Where's the council member on 11th Street?" Kevin Strickland responds, "She supports. Her chief of staff was there and asked the community who supports the project to attend." Randy says, "The main thing of the road diet is making 11th safe, and if not a bike lane, then it could have been trees and sidewalks." Kevin Strickland says, reiterating what Randy is saying, 11th is about safety. It's been an issue for years. The bike lanes are an important part, but not the whole part. Randy asks, can Neighborhood Lex share social media handles? I thought there was a response in there. Oh, at Northline Lex. Wondering if you have updates regarding timeline for TxDOT construction of the connection from Cottage Grove Park across Cohen Street Bridge to Memorial Park. And then I'll read this last one and then maybe somebody can answer that one. As someone planning on starting to commute by bike, this is Christopher Huddleston, vehicular cycling as a solo commuter with traffic moving at 40 miles per hour is out of the picture. The addition of protected bike lanes are the only way to see greater adoption of biking commuting. Okay. And then so just going back to that question about the connection from Cottage Grove Park across Cohen Street Bridge to Memorial Park.
Yeah, I know we have that in our list of projects that that Brian updates for each full meeting.
Give me 1 second. Let me pull up the latest. So they're still waiting permits to construct under the railroad. That's what TxDOT is waiting on before they can continue.
Got it. And that can always be a real challenge.
One point of clarification, if I may.
Please.
On 11th Street too, there's actually two council members, both Abby Kamen and Carlos Cisneros. The very eastern edge is in Carlos Cisneros' district. That's District H. Both are very supportive. I spoke in front of City Council yesterday, and the first council member to reply to my testimony was Councilmember Cisneros, and she had some very positive responses. And yeah, Abby Kamen has been phenomenal on this issue.
Great, thank you for that, Joe. And thank you for speaking in front of the council also. I don't see any other hands up. Any other comments from the committee members?
All right. So Brandon, next slide. We'll go into announcements and events. So coming up next, people, we have Like to Work Day coming up in about 3 months. We got it saved for May 20th. We're currently in the early stages of planning, so we're just kind of having introductory communication with the mayor's office, with HPD. Commander Christine was able to get us in touch with the right people. So as we continue to plan for Bike to Work Day. We'll continue to share information with the BAC, and we'll love your, support and participation as you always do. You come through. So we'll have more to follow on that, but just wanted to make sure you're putting that on your calendar. Next slide. Also, tonight, if you have been following what's been going on for the Bogle Creek Greenway project that Houston Parks Board is leading, they're having an additional meeting on phase 1, community meeting coming up tonight at 6 p.m. There is a link in the slides that I sent out to everybody. And you can click that link and it'll go straight to the Zoom meeting. Information is also available on Houston Parks Board's website. Next slide. And then our next meetings. So March 23rd, we'll have the Education Subcommittee meeting. We are hoping once again that all of the BAC appointments have been confirmed by the mayor and city council, so we will have our official roster for the year, as well as our chair and vice chair locked in. Next Bicycle Advisory Committee is going to be coming up April 27th. And then the Infrastructure Subcommittee will meet again May 25th. As of right now, we're still planning on the dual format with both in-person options as well as the option of Microsoft Teams. Of course, the subcommittee meetings are going to be held in the John B. Ray conference room, where Brandon and I are seated right now in the in 611 Walker. And the Bicycle Advisory Committee meetings are always held in City Hall Annex in the council chamber. But as things continue to evolve with COVID and social distancing and restrictions being lifted, these may change. So know that I will make sure that I get you the most up-to-date information on any kind of changes to the Texas Open Meetings Act, or any additional guidance on meeting in person as soon as I get them. We do want, we're hoping that we'll be able to get new BAC all in one space, so we can update the group picture, because we have a whole lot of new faces, myself included, that aren't existing on the website. So even if it's not during a meeting, we might try to find a way to convene around an event or we're outside, someplace safe. I'm open to all different kinds of options, just as a way for us to convene safely. And then that is all of the announcements that we have here on the staff side. Were there any additional announcements, any events from BAC members or members of the public that's coming out? We still have about 17 minutes of time. So if there's something else going on, please let me know, and we can incorporate that to the meeting and the post-meeting notes. All right, I'll take silence as everybody nodding their heads and yes, this was a great meeting. This is a great list. We're all looking forward to attending all of these things. And then go to the last slide. I now turn it over to you, Chair Council, to close us out. Once again, thank you all for attending the BAC meeting from the perspective of the staff. We appreciate all of your input and keeping us honest and supporting our work to continue to build like we're.
Okay, I appreciate everyone's input. Again, as usual, we've had some really good discussion on a number of topics. So looking forward to driving some of these projects forward and filling in the gaps in the network. And we'll see you all in March.
Thank you. Good work, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone, for coming out.